Today we'll talk about event storming. And before we start, I would like to talk to say what you will not learn today. So you won't learn how to become an event storming expert in 40 minutes. And because I actually run training in event storming and other things. My name is Vadzim. I'm a co-owner and instructor at Tech, where we run all of those training. And I work as well as a hands-on architect at Apotec Ian. And some photos from my private life if you want to keep in touch. So I have a family, I enjoy nature, skiing, playing the guitar and singing, fishing, working out. I love cars, and I make sometimes goodies for my family, and I like to do most of all of those things with my family. So let's move on. Today my goal is to show how EventStorming can be useful for developers, because it's a TDC, Trondheim Developer Conference. It's not an THC, Trondheim HR Conference. So for sure you don't give your personal data to anyone and get some cheap gifts in return, right? So it's pure developer conference. That's why we should focus on developers. So, however, if you're not a developer, you can still stay here because you will learn a lot as well. And I would like to inspire you to use EventStorming when you're back at work. So let's see if I can manage this. By the way, if we have enough time, and if you remember, could you please remind me to tell you two funny stories about EventStorming after my talk? So let me give you some context before we understand why we need EventStorming at all. And I would like to ask you a couple of questions. And so it will be pretty interactive. So the first question is, how many of you agree that many people work on projects they actually don't understand? Pretty many hands. Yes, and it's very true, because always or sometimes, depending on your company, we are so focused on our things. Like someone is writing integrations. Let's say Peter is focusing on integrations. Hanne is focusing on front end. Glenn is focusing on UX. And we are pretty good at our fields. Yes? However, we miss this like overview. So why we are doing those things? The overview of the whole system. And it actually leads to not that pleasant consequences when it comes to communication, collaboration, and the results of our development. Next one. Systems often contain wrong developers' assumptions about functions and dependencies rather than knowledge of domain experts. Who agrees on that? Yeah, still many hands. I think this is quite true as well, because of sometimes because of lack of time, lack of communication, lack of overview, where we need to make decisions, and we don't have time. And who will be our partner when it comes to making the decisions? Probably our neighbor colleague. Do we go to end users and ask what they will like or not? Not often. Sometimes we just imagine, okay, so probably end users will like this function, then we will add some maybe table or buttons and so on, that they will like it. And moreover, in corporate environment, I'm sure someone from you, actually, some of you are working in corporate environments. Usually you even don't get any feedback from that end users, correct? So you just implement something, you assume that they will like it, maybe they hate you, but you're fine. You know, we don't know about it. Yeah, so again, not very good. Next one. Did you experience the following? One architect or maybe analyst spends a lot of time on gathering requirements from different people and then assumes that developers will quickly understand what they will implement. Who had this one person, superstar? Maybe you are that person right now? Or you were? I was that person actually. It's in some companies, I believe that I can do everything and then just throw it to developers. They will understand quickly because, yeah, but actually I've spent months on something, yes? And what can happen with this architect? This architect may just disappear. What will the next architect do? Exactly the same, right? By the way, I was at some point that architect, so I can't say anything about that guy because he was really smart, good person, and he spent about 6-7 months on meeting with different people, gathering requirements, making some notes, writing documentation, and then he quit. And then I was the next one who had to catch up in like 2-3 months. It was pretty challenging for me. Because, even some documentation existed, it was pretty hard job for me to understand actually how the system landscape and things like that. Yeah. Again, not good having that one person who understands everything. So we need like a common understanding. So what can help? We should discover implicit dependencies on the business level, like maybe market trends and user behavior, not only technical things. We should transfer the knowledge. I won't talk about this much because we all understand knowledge sharing is the key. We should discover the most important events and problems, different bottlenecks, legal restrictions like GDPR and so on, and we should know them beforehand, not along the way. And we should solve business problems rather than blindly implement requirements. Anybody is familiar with that when someone from your business tells you what to do? So you need to add one function that will allow us import Excel file, and you will process it, and this is how you will solve it. Anybody had this experience? Wow, many. I had this experience as well. So, but why are they talking to us what to do? Because usually I like to ask, what are your challenges? And then you come probably with a better solution. Yeah, then blindly implement the requirements. All right, maybe it's too abstract. You should have a nice corporate culture where you listen to each other and you share your knowledge with domain experts and so on. So could it be closer to the code? Let's find out. Let's imagine, what if you had names of the classes you will implement in the code? What if you had knowledge about your APIs? Maybe REST APIs, maybe some public methods in your main classes. But what if you had knowledge about them? What if you had knowledge about your end users that will be using your system? What if you had information related to UX, like information that helps users make their decisions? What if you had the information about important business rules that you will implement? What if you had information about your domain events? So if you're developing event-driven architecture, so that would be crucial for you. What if you had information about the external system you will integrate with? Because we all know that integration with external systems actually saves a lot of time when we exactly know how to implement it. When we don't know, it will for sure last for months. And what if you had information about some questions that can't be answered right now and need to be investigated? And let's imagine you have clusters of those things, and you can combine those clusters into bounded context. Bounded context comes from domain-driven design. So if you're not familiar with domain-driven design, you can just imagine that it's a service or microservice to some extent. And let's say you have knowledge about your future services. And you have everything before you start coding. Who would like to have this before starting coding? Yes, many of you. I would love to have this before start coding. Because learning along the way, when you have already done much job, requires you a lot of refactoring and probably taking those compromises where you have already accumulated technical debt and it's hard to avoid it and you just need to continue. Again, real life case. I heard this from one manager who we were discussing how we can improve their system, and he told me, we can't stop the train. We can't stop the train. So what kind of train is he thinking about? Is it like a Japanese train or those from Wild West train where people should get off when it, comes uphill? Yeah. So, and then imagine that this information, everything you can get in hours. Instead of sitting in those meetings for weeks, for months, you can get it in hours. Sounds like a magic, but you can get it. So let's understand event storming a bit better, because what I showed you actually a result of successfully run event storming. So event storming is a flexible workshop where we bring together all the interested parties and we do a massive collaborative exploration of the complex domains. And we run it for hours instead of days, weeks, or months. So it's pretty fast meeting. And I like to call event storming the most effective meeting you can get. Some examples. So those are real people, not AI generated. You have to believe me, because you can't check. So people having fun, standing and working together. That's why it's effective. Many elements of the event storming. So if you want to, I will have a QR code, so you can download slides afterwards and just go back to it and check this out. So let's just go quickly why we need event storming. It's faster and more enjoyable than traditional methods. I will try to show you why. It helps developers and business people get know each other. For example, in my case, I just greeted some people in passing in the canteen. After running a couple of event storming at my company, at Apotheken, I got to know more people, and it actually really contributes to good communication. It helps to find a common language between developers and business people. If anyone is familiar with domain-driven design, what is a common language in domain-driven design? Yes? Huh? Ubiquitous language as well. Yes, ubiquitous language, of course. So that's the language we want to find during the event storming. And it helps discover important questions before writing the code. Before writing the code. This is why I think it's like a brilliant technique. And it helps just getting the strategic design, define our boundaries and their dependencies. So basically contributes to system architecture a lot. Now, how to run event storming. Let's go to it. Unfortunately, I have to omit some details because we don't have time. Usually I spend 4 hours on this, explaining everything, giving tips and tricks and so on. Yeah. However, you will get a big picture of how to run it. And we start with invitations. We don't start with running it. We need to actually take care of invitations. Some people actually fail event storming because they don't invite right people. And what are those right people? So we need to find 2 groups of people. The first group is people who have answers, and the second group is people who have questions. Who usually have questions? Curious developers and testers, like technical people. Answers, domain experts, and users. If you invite only one group, yeah, you will have fun with your neighbor colleagues. And event storming probably won't be so successful. Some of them won't show up, therefore think about backups. So if you think that, okay, so we will invite that person and it will be just fine, everyone, almost everyone, or many, has families, sickness, and so on and so on. People just won't show up, and then if that actually person knows a lot about a particular area in your system, then probably you will miss some, like a big knowledge. It will be just a big gap in your understanding. That's why you should have backups. And there should be clear who will be a facilitator. That can be like one person, two persons, depending on the size of your system. And facilitator basically works on workshop preparations, explanation what to do, management of long conversations, because there might be long conversations, just delving into details and so on and so on. And facilitator should be full of energy. That's very important. So if your facilitator is a very introvert developer who doesn't like people, then probably, you know, the result may vary. So just suggestion should be someone who can drive people and just share their energy with others. And you should give the context to audience. Just 5 minutes. It shouldn't be like, you know, talk for 30 minutes. It should be 5 minutes. So we will explore this. This is our scope. Just very quick understanding of event storming. Just we will start with the first phase. It will be sticky notes. Nothing else. Should be very fast. Then, still not there. Still we don't run event storming. We need to prepare the room. The room setup. It should be long, straight wall. Really, it should be straight. I remember one client just told us, yes, you will have the straight room. And I know that I should double check it like always. And I called them, could you please just, you know, provide me some video of your room? And indeed, it was a long straight wall, but there were like 3 windows in the middle. Yeah. And she said, but you know, you can just, you know, work here, then, you know, window, work there, like this. No, it should be long and straight, and you should be able to stick your sticky notes along the wall. You should have seats that are not easily available. So sometimes they can sit, but people should stand when they're working, if they're able to stand. So there shouldn't be a case when someone, let's say, just grab the chair, sits like this, and work with others just showing something on the wall. No, everyone is standing. Should be enough space to move between desks and the wall. Plenty of sticky notes. Enough healthy food and beverages. Flip chart or anything else that can be used as a legend, just to remind the people what's what, colors and so on. And the timer visible to everyone. Yeah, actually, some people fail event storming because they don't bring the timer, and people just, you know, use all the time on the very first phase. And then they become like very tired, and you can't basically continue. And now we start event storming. So the first phase of event storming is called chaotic exploration. This is, and what we do, so we basically have those orange or yellow sticky notes, and you ask all of the people just cast like everything they have in their mind about events that happen in the system. And events usually have like, here we have like 2 rules, basic rules. First of all, it should be past tense, which means that, for example, we have dispute opened, dispute resolved, something that actually has happened, that can't be just, you know, it's a fact. Yeah, it should be past tense. And the second one, you shouldn't stick sticky notes on the edges, because if you think it's a, let's say, very last sticky note, probably there will appear some events after your sticky note, and then you will have to move everything and kind of, you know, or maybe stick it on the wall or maybe on the window. So don't stick your sticky notes on the edges. All right, and that's it. And as well, you can see a small timer. I won't mention this afterwards, but this is your like a guideline how many minutes it should run. So as you can see, 10 minutes usually is enough. Really, sounds kind of scary. But after 8 or 9 minutes, usually people don't have anything to write on those nodes. So why is it useful? So it's a first step to find this common vocabulary, ubiquitous language. Everyone's knowledge starts to be visible to others. Usually people say, wow, I didn't know that actually it may happen. And most of the events will be events in your code, which is nice for developers, correct? And one small tip, write domain events so others can read. For example, if you can see it, so probably you can read it, yeah? Most of you. So it's a dispute open. However, if someone writes like this, I have a real situation. So I ask people like, who wrote this event? Silence. All right. Next one, we need to make order of it. So basically, there are some techniques how to organize events according to the time. And I will mention just two of them. Two kind of the most important, I think. The first one is a pivotal event. So you see those like a small yellow tape. You basically select events that are the most important use in your process or system, which means that probably there are some events that are unrecoverable. For example, a dispute closed. When we close the dispute, we can't open it again. It's closed. If you want to reopen, you should open a new one. Okay? So it's a good candidate for the pivotal events. And usually, depending on the size of your system, it's kind of maybe 4, 5, not that many, like the most important events. And the next one is swim lanes, that horizontal red line. So some like sub-processes, let's say, may happen in parallel. Let's say we may work on dispute while we may have events related to reporting, for example. And they just can totally run in parallel, so you have this ability to put some events on the top and some events on the bottom. So you have kind of swim lanes. All right? And use some time for that. And why is it useful? So pivotal events and swim lanes can help you identify service boundaries in the future, those like your services or microservices or bounded context. And you understand the system even better. And at that point, many questions begin to arise, and some of them can be answered and should be turned to hotspots. I will show hotspots just in a second. One tip, work in dynamic groups. So you basically take people organize in some groups, and for example, the first group will work between the first and second pivotal event. And maybe there are like 3, 5 people. Next group between the second and the third one, and so on and so on. And in the next phase, you just mix them. It's much better for understanding rather than the same group will work on the same part and just, again, doesn't understand what's happening there or there. All right? So hotspots represent unclear topics or questions that cannot be easily resolved at the very moment. And as a facilitator, you should be really, really watch out for them, because sometimes people start discussing one particular event and they can discuss it like forever, especially when the people can't communicate with each other in a good way. So they become like, argue and so on. And as a facilitator, you should politely interrupt the discussion and just turn it to the hotspot and just write this down and, okay, this is a hotspot, we'll discuss it later. Because you don't have this luxury to run the meeting forever. So the solution is to stop the discussion, mark it as a hotspot, and continue. Next one, actors and systems. Yeah, so hotspots were those one. And we basically find roles. Basically, they will be our people, actors, real end users. So like this small yellow sticky note. And we find as well external systems we will integrate with. All right, we use this pink sticky note. Again, working groups, try to find them and stick related to specific domain events that actually influence external system or can be caused by interaction with your end users. Why is it useful? You will get knowledge about who will use your system, different roles, which is very important for developers as well, because it can be connected to security, for example, and so on and so on. External systems show the integration you will implement. I think like integrations take usually a lot of time because you need to agree on API, how to implement it on security, how to implement your authorization, how to handle errors and things like that. So usually it's important to know the system you will integrate with. And this part usually leads to even more unanswered questions or hotspots because, you know, you'll start asking questions about like users and systems, and probably you will see more those red sticky notes. One tip: don't force participants to draw humans. If you read books, a book about EventStorming, you will see some like this is our admin, you know, like an actor in a crown. And just imagine after drawing 20 of those, people will start hating you. Yeah, especially if they don't have good drawing skills. So prefer this one. You just use some circle and you know, and a letter, and that's it. Yeah, just from the advice from the real experience. Next one: explicit walkthrough, problems and opportunities. So in this case, so after running the previous phases, we may end up with a situation where we still have some knowledge gaps. So like one group worked on this part, another group worked on that part. However, something in between still may be blurry. And you select a narrator. Usually it's someone from a domain expert who can actually tell the whole story from the beginning to the end. Right? And here people, they can take their seats, by the way, and they ask more and more questions, and you will see more and more colorful sticky notes. So you may end up with hotspots, you may end up with opportunities like those, like something that can be helpful for your business. And in the end, if you have many blue sticky notes, red sticky notes, you need to prioritize it because you need to discard them, right? So in this case, you run some like a voting, and you just cast those small blue sticky notes to different hotspots, and then you have your backlog. Like so, if one hotspot just gets the most of the sticky notes, so this will be your priority. Okay, so we can check the truthfulness of the story. Common understanding becomes even better because we go from beginning to the end. And we can get even more sticky notes like domain events, hotspots, and opportunities, which is good. Better understanding. And you can as well change the narrator if necessary, because it can be tiresome for one person to talk in like 90 minutes. Yeah? So if your system is really big, so you should change the narrator. And the big picture EventStorming done. So everything that I have talked about is called the big picture EventStorming. And some useful tips. Just to remember, so all the phases should be time-boxed. So you should have a timer clearly visible to everyone. Not all domain events with the same text are duplicates. So if people, let's say, have dispute closed, dispute closed, dispute closed. So yes, you may actually throw it. However, sometimes it's worth actually checking what actually that person meant, because sometimes it could mean different things, and sometimes you just need to feel, you know, like whether you should find out it or not. Long conversations should be politely interrupted and replaced by hotspots, so what I talked about, and avoid using technical terms. Please, aggregate root, bounded context, and then domain experts will be like, okay, they have started talking about the technical things, we won't help them. Yeah, so please avoid using technical terms. And prepare for personal issues, like long discussions, a person dominating others, and so on and so on. So as a facilitator, you should be aware of it, and you should be able to work with those different kinds of people. And discuss only visible things. So if one starts making their notes in notebook or in laptop, not a good idea. It should be visible on the board to everyone, because now we're talking about subjective, let's say, understanding of the things. So avoid those things. So before going further, it's important to resolve the most important hotspots, because if you have, let's say, 20 hotspots, usually you should work on those and improve your big picture event storming, and then you go further. So what's next? Next is a process modeling. So here we, depending on the system, if your system is too big, you can just chunk it to separate sessions and have conversations with particular domain experts that are responsible for a particular area. And here we work on the next step, where we find out the commands, so like those blue sticky notes, and here we have like an open dispute, close dispute, and things like that. So the actions or intentions of the end users. So as you remember, they will be your future APIs. We work on policies, important business rules. For example, you may have like whenever, let's say, if dispute is resolved without conversation between buyer and seller, we can automatically close it. But if there were any conversation, then support should check it manually. So this is a good business rule. Yes, and you have read models. So read models are those green sticky notes. So they are related, usually related to UX. So basically you write information that help users make their decisions. For example, in order to close the dispute by a support team, they need to know information about order, conversation, and information about dispute, of course. So, and then as an architect, when you see those things, like, okay, support needs to know information about this and that and that. Actually, maybe it's time to think about a pattern like a CQRS. So we need to kind of gather some data in one particular service. Yeah, which is a nice thing as well. So why is it useful? Commands equal to your future API design. Read models can help you with UI-related decisions and with applying some patterns like CQRS. And policies may turn to important domain logic in your code, which is as well very important to have before writing the code. And some tip, don't wait for process modeling if you discover a policy earlier. Let's say someone says, oh, it's a nice business rule, let's just document it. And you say, no, we should wait for process modeling. It's not allowed to use this sticky note. We should wait for a couple of days. No, if you find out it, so you just write it down and stick to the wall, even if you run a big picture event storming. So there are no really kind of hard rules. Next one, finding bounded context. So this is more like a technical meeting, I would say, because based on the vocabulary, like end users, scenarios, and different interrelations between the events, you find out what will your bounded context, boundaries for your future services. Yeah. So you run it as a separate meeting, and here you can imagine, you can see that your system architecture starts emerging. So why is it useful? You understand what services you will have, which is crucial for architects. Yes? And tip, domain experts may also help find bounded context. So I told you it's like a more technical meeting. However, I have real experience talking to domain experts. Surprisingly, in Apotheken, it took me like 5 minutes to explain what bounded context is to our domain experts. And then they helped me actually to find bounded context. Yeah? So sometimes, depending on your company, maybe it's okay to include domain expert in this session as well. And after that, so it's a pure technical meeting. So discovering aggregates. So they come from tactical domain-driven design, and those are your main classes that will hold the business logic. and you work with your neighbor colleagues, you discuss the vocabulary, related events, like a life cycle of potential entities, and so on and so on. And then you evaluate and create your aggregates. This is this one big yellow sticky note. And aggregates are the most important classes in your domain model, and one tip is to avoid identifying too big aggregates. One may just think, okay, so those are events, all of those are events are about reporting. Reporting. So we will have one aggregate, report. Sometimes not. So yeah, I won't go into this topic because I don't have enough time, but just please be very careful when you just identify your aggregates. Prefer like a small aggregate than bigger. And that's it. However, you may still have the following questions. I try to anticipate them. Will EventStorming give me 100% solution? Nope. So it's not a golden hammer. However, it's an affordable, good hammer, I would say. So, because it costs little. It just runs for a couple of hours. Why not trying them in your company and just understand if it fits your needs or not? Does EventStorming work only for new projects? No, it actually can help you understand the current systems and processes in your company's landscape. I actually ran it for development and release process in my company because we just had documentation written by one person from their one perspective how we should develop and release our systems. And of course, it was just, very subjective perspective. Yeah. And in order to justify this, I had to just run this EventStorming, invited many people, and guess what? In the end of the session, after 2.5 hours, we got 20 hotspots. 20. So the process wasn't that good described in the documentation, so because people didn't understand why should they do this, but we are currently doing just a completely different thing. Yeah. So works for process as well. Is EventStorming about any hard rules? If you remember, I mentioned that, so no hard rules at all. And as a facilitator, this is a nice thing, you create an illusion that everything is under control. However, it's not. When we run our training, just honestly, I don't know what will happen. But somehow we'll come to like almost the same system architecture in the end. So you don't have control. The people work. You just set the structure. But they think that everything is under your control. What if I need to remember additional information? For example, some additional information about the entities and business rules. You can as well like use the board or just some sticky notes and just write them down and stick to the wall if you think it's important. Maybe it's a definition of some term, or maybe relationships between different entities and things like that. Just write them down. How to run EventStorming in my company? The very first suggestion is to start small. So really, just select one small system and try it out. And you will find out how many adjustments you will do the next time. So don't start with the big system because people will trust you. Then will come to the session. Maybe you will fail it in different things and they will say, EventStorming doesn't work. So start with a small one. When to stop EventStorming? So it's really up to you. So you may continue just discussing the hotspots. When you see that its value diminishes, then you can just stop it. Can I run EventStorming online? I have only 20 seconds. So yes, however, there are some caveats, like technical challenges with microphone, people doing their own things, and so on. So it's not recommended. So if you can't run it offline, do it online. For sure, using some Miro tools and so on. But if you can run it offline, do it offline. What's next after EventStorming? Digitize it, like make photos, convert it to Miro, or keep the paper version, document and in a place accessible to the team, and plan technical related works. So you start with system architecture, filling your backlog, and things like that. Will I say anything about AI and EventStorming? No. However, if you have any ideas how to apply AI with EventStorming, please come to me after my talk. So in short words, what is EventStorming? For me, EventStorming is the best starting point, I can get in hours. Thank you very much.